Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, offering convenient delivery and free pickup to help with the busy times this holiday. Online customers enjoy the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Get started in the Safeway app or at safeway.com.
If you tune into the Winter Olympic Games in a few months, you'll get to see the debut of a sport called ski mountaineering, or Skimo for short. And a Coloradan will be there to represent the U.S. Cam Smith from Crested Butte hopes to beat out the European teams that have more history with the sport. Smith and his relay partner from Wyoming will have to ski up a mountainside, then climb up the steepest parts to the top before skiing all the way back down to the finish line. And based on their speedy qualifying times, they'll probably make that look easy. I'm Bazi Kanai. Coming up, an airline in Colorado wants to expand at DIA, but its proposal is hitting headwinds.
Immigration advocates have been protesting outside of Key Lime's offices in Centennial since news broke about the company's business with ICE.
Then, state and federal health officials disagree yet again on a vaccine recommendation. You'll hear the latest and how a former state health leader is now challenging social media users to seek out better medical advice.
Would they take their car, if it broke down, to a hairdresser? The answer is probably no.
Plus, a spiritual leader in the Mountain Ute tribe shares some of their religious practices.
We're known by other bands as the old way people, and we still practice these old ways.
That's as a nationwide survey falls short when it comes to capturing indigenous beliefs. It's Wednesday, December 10th. Here's the news in Colorado today. Asking for a little extra storage space at Denver International Airport isn't a big deal for most airlines, but a request from one small company based in Colorado has caused a stir. Key Lime Air is proposing an expansion, but it needs approval from Denver City Council, and at least one council member wants to delay the vote because of the company's relationship with ICE. Denverite's Kevin Beatty has been reporting on the airline. Kevin, many may not have heard of Key Lime Air. What exactly is it?
Yeah, so Key Lime Air is headquartered at the Centennial Airport south of Denver, and it markets itself as the, quote, largest single feeder aircraft network in the U.S.
Feeder network. What's that?
In practical terms, the company ships people and cargo to parts of the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. And it also runs a regional subsidiary called Denver Air Connection that runs out of DIA. Key Lime itself operates a fleet of 25 aircrafts, and those planes are essentially available on demand. So say you're a college sports team in Colorado and you need a flight to Southern California, you could call up Key Lime and charter a plane.
And we gather from your reporting a federal agency could also do that.
That's right. Colorado Newsline dug into government data and found that Key Lime has been transporting people detained by ICE. An article from October described people in shackles boarding Key Lime planes headed to El Paso. And Colorado Newsline later reported that the company flew nearly 300 ICE-related flights between September and October. Key Lime is the first known Colorado-based airline to do this kind of work since President Trump started his immigration crackdown earlier this year.
How did this become an issue? How did Key Lime Air land on Denver City Council's radar?
Immigration advocates have been protesting outside of Key Lime's offices in Centennial since news broke about the company's business with ICE. And last week, about 24 students at CU Boulder staged their own campus protest over the university's affiliation with Key Lime. Its sports teams have been chartering that company's planes since 2011. That all caught the eye of Denver City Council member Sarah Parody, who said she wanted more time to look into Key Lime before voting on the proposed 1,200 square foot expansion.
1,200 square feet doesn't sound like a whole lot of space. Is that expansion directly related to Key Lime's relationship with ICE?
It's not clear whether the extra space has anything to do with its ICE operations. And in general, Key Lime's deportation flights are out of Centennial and not DIA. The company, by the way, did not call me back when I asked for comment. But it is something that city council members like Parody want to know more about. though it might not matter if that space actually is related to their government contracts.
Why not?
City legislators might be interested in voting down the expansion just because the company works with immigration authorities, and they've done it before. In 2019, City Council denied halfway house contracts because the companies involved also held contracts with ICE. It'll be tough to get a company like Key Lime to stop doing business with the Trump administration for something that's totally legal, but immigration advocates are happy City Council is using its power to at least raise this issue, even if they don't vote down the expansion. They'll keep calling on companies to stop doing business with the Trump administration, and they could have a win here in Denver with this expansion proposal.
Denverite's Kevin Beatty. Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, Bazzi.
Colorado health leaders are pushing back after a federal vaccine panel voted to roll back long-standing guidance for a newborn immunization. Last week, the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices voted to recommend the hepatitis B vaccine at birth only for infants whose mothers test positive for the virus or whose status is unknown. Arlo has more.
The decision came after a tense meeting in which a 3-decade-old health recommendation was ended.
Yeah, so the meeting has made clear that the members of this committee are more interested in sowing fear than advancing vaccine policy.
Dr. David Higgins is a pediatrician and an assistant professor at the University of Colorado Anschutz. Top health officials here are now urging Coloradans to rely on long-trusted medical groups like the American Academy of Pediatrics and the state's own experts like Higgins.
The scientific record on the hepatitis B vaccine is very clear and unequivocal. The hepatitis B vaccine birth dose has been administered to tens of millions of newborns, and extensive safety monitoring has never identified any credible safety signals.
They say mothers are not the only way that babies can be exposed to Hep B, which spreads through bodily fluids. Colorado will continue recommending the hepatitis B shot for all newborns, and state leaders warn that rolling back the guidance could confuse families. It can also widen health gaps and make it harder to prevent a virus that can lead to liver disease and cancer later in life.
I have parents who come in and have concerns and questions that came directly from something federal health leaders said or recommended. Fortunately, after empathetic conversation and helping the parents understand why what they heard is not in line with the clear scientific evidence, parents frequently still then choose to vaccinate their child when they understand how important it is and how misleading the information they heard really is.
And that confusion, it's something that former State Chief Medical Officer Dr. Trista Ghosh has been thinking a lot about.
I would say it was a humbling experience to talk to people from all over the country because I realized as a public health person that we got a lot of the messages wrong and we created a lot of confusion. And that planted the seeds for a lot of the distrust and disinformation that we're seeing today in America.
During the pandemic, Ghosh saw firsthand where people get their information can ripple into real-world consequences. She pointed to a southern state that initially avoided COVID cases because of its warm weather and assumed that meant the virus wasn't a threat.
And I learned that they didn't take any of the precautions seriously because they didn't see much virus in their communities. And then when it finally hit their communities, they weren't so ready to believe, and he ended up losing people, colleagues, family members, as a result of that. They died.
And the source of a lot of this dubious information? Social media.
Would they take their car, if it broke down, to a hairdresser? The answer is probably no. Yet they would put their body and their health in the hands of some random wellness influencer who's probably a shoe salesman.
Ghosh writes about these lessons in her new book, Before the Next Crisis. But she said that her kids reminded her that books aren't where most people get their information anymore.
Most people are they don't read books. They're on Instagram or TikTok. So you're telling doctors and public health people to get out there, and you're not getting out there. And they challenged me. So I actually started an Instagram channel.
So she's focused on using social media to spread scientific information to the masses. Under the handle HealthHackerMD, Ghosh posts short videos that break down medical studies, debunk viral claims, and try to explain the reason behind public health guidance, all in hopes of keeping Coloradans and many others in the know and healthy.
Indigenous peoples have been practicing religious faith in Colorado for thousands of years, but their spiritual traditions are often overlooked. In fact, when the Pew Research Center conducted its most recent religious survey, it didn't even ask specifically about Native religions. CPR's Elaine Tassi was able to learn more. She recently visited the Ute Mountain Ute Reservation near Cortez in southwestern Colorado. Hi, Tassi.
Hi, Buzzy. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. While you were at the reservation, you met a Ute religious leader to learn more about his practices.
Yes, that's right. I did, Buzzy. His name is Farley Ketchum Sr. He is a wildlife biologist, and he works for the tribe. And he's also one of its spiritual leaders.
I'm the current Bear Dance chief along with 5 others, so there's 6 of us. And I'm the only Sundance chief for the tribe.
And so, Buzzy, he was telling me when I met with him in his office a couple months ago that he and about 5 others lead a number of ceremonies for tribal members who practice traditional rather than what we know as Western religion. And he told me that he himself started with a Sundance ceremony when he was only 13 years old.
My grandfather, he was a sun dancer all his life. And my ancestors were sun dancers too. I lived the Sundance way, and I grew up with it. And they said before you can enter the Sundance ceremony or lodge, you would have to have a dream 4 times.
And so once a person has a dream 4 sequential times, the same dream, then that kind of puts them in a position where they can go on a vision quest. And so what takes place is that a person would climb Ute Peak. It's about 10,000 feet tall. They go there without food, without water. They don't really bring like a bag or anything. And they basically just stay there in a really deep meditative state, waiting for a vision. And the way that he talked about it when I was sitting there with him, it was really powerful.
You take your tobacco and you go up there and you sit. When you get to the very top, you think you're the only one that's did this before, but you look up in the trees and these aspens, and you see these tobacco ties that the old ones already been there. And they're way higher. They used to be at your level. Now the tree's growing and they're way up there.
The old ones have already been there. I can definitely see how that would be a very profound experience. Speaking of younger people on a quest, did Ketchum say that traditional practices remain strong within the Ute Mountain Ute even today?
Yes, he said that that is something that remains strong there. It's not something that's really out in the open, but if you get into a discussion about it, he might share some of the stories. He said that he's really proud to be a part of that tradition, and you can hear it in his voice when he talks about the tribe.
We're known by other bands as the old way people, and we still practice these old ways, and they get guidance from us as well, other youth bands.
Going back to the Pew study we mentioned earlier, do you know why the survey doesn't try to quantify Native American religious believers?
Well, yeah, it fell under other on the survey. And I spoke with one of the researchers. His name is Chip Rotolo. And when I asked him about that, he stressed that even though this was an enormous number of people that were surveyed, this didn't come up so much.
So out of the nearly 37,000 people who took this survey, just 28 identified with a Native American religion.
So for researchers, that's a margin of error issue. If the survey doesn't really offer much insight into Native believers in the U.S., what does it show about religion more generally in the country right now?
Well, one thing that the survey does, Bazi, is it ranks all of the states from the most religious to the least religious based on what people say about their belief in God, how often they pray, how often they go to church, and things like that. Mississippi came in first in that ranking, and then Colorado was way down at number 39.
Sort of toward the back of the pack then.
That's right. And so when you dig down in Colorado, just over half of the people say that they're Christian, while 7% belong to other religions, including Judaism, Buddhism, and Islam. And then around 40% of Coloradans are not religiously affiliated at all. And that number has shot up about 15% in almost 2 decades.
CPR's Elaine Tassi, thanks for sharing your reporting with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Bazi.
Reporting for today's show also came from CPR's John Daly. Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow Colorado Today in your podcast app. I'm Bazi Kanani. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, offering convenient delivery and free pickup to help with the busy times this holiday. Online customers enjoy the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Get started in the Safeway app or at safeway.com.